Baddies, welcome back to another episode of Terra's Baddies Club. This week has been a doozy if you saw from social media and the week before. I am a little bit delayed in this episode, so I apologize, but the important news is that Survivor Squad is going to stay up and those Survivor stories are going to be out there. So I'm so excited for that. I am just ecstatic about that, and I'm really happy about today's guest. We have been following each other on social media for a couple years now, and then we just started to have a conversation over my episode about Flightless Bird with David, and I just love Erin. I love her energy. This conversation was so great. I got to hear about her love story, and then we really got to talk about dating. So it's so important for me. She is an actress, a comedian, a producer, a director, and a podcast host of Hello Darling. Yeah, so let's get into today's episode. Hi, Erin. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't you tell the people that don't know who you are a little bit about yourself?
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on your show. But yeah, my name is Erin Darling. I am a comedian and director, writer, content creator, kind of one of those people that does like 15 things like everyone else in LA that's a comedian.
I feel like that's the standard here in LA, at least.
Yeah, no, right? It's like, I think every comedian has 15 jobs. And I have a podcast called Hello Darling.
I love it. I love it. And I know that we were just chatting about how we're both going through transitions. And I love hearing about your transition. And I would love for you to share your story about what you're going through right now.
Yeah, well, I've had a very crazy year of life, and that's what I talk about on my podcast. I met someone on a blind date, fell in love, got engaged 4 months later, eloped, got pregnant, and all of this has happened over the course of 1 calendar year. I'm still in shock about this. But I really wanted to come back to podcasting because I'd taken a break from my previous projects, and I did a project with Spotify, which was amazing. Like I love working with other companies and collaborating with other people. But when it came to me telling my own story, I knew that I wanted to come to the table with something to say. And do you ever have that feeling where you're like, I feel like my life's about to change. Like there's some sort of change brewing. There's like an energetic shift. I knew I was about to go through one, but I didn't know what it was.
Yes. No, I feel you with that because I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like I start to go crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it happens.
Yes. Okay. I'm feeling one right now too. Like the last couple of months I felt one, but right before I met Rory, my husband, I was just so like restless. And I just knew something was going to happen, and I thought it was going to be career related, but weirdly enough, I got this other total surprise. I mean, it's really weird to marry someone you met on a blind date. Like,
why not? That's better than Bumble. It's way better than Tinder. It's better than Raya, because I feel like Raya is just the apps that you meet like other people in the industry.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. But basically I was on a hike with a girlfriend of mine, and we were talking about kids, ironically. And she was like, do you want to have kids? And I was like, I do, but I need to get better at cycling through people who aren't right for me. I need to identify it and move on a little bit quicker, because what had happened prior is I was in 2 almost back-to-back relationships where I was with someone for a year and a half, and I knew pretty early on in both situations that it wasn't right. And it wasn't anything to do with the person. These are both nice people, but it was more of the situation. Like I knew in my gut this was not the one. And in both situations, I tried to make it work. I was like doing the square peg round hole thing for quite some time. And although I don't regret trying to make a relationship work, I do think I could have done myself a favor by getting out a little bit quicker and trusting my gut. Really, that was the problem. I wasn't listening to my gut.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like sometimes a lot of the guys in LA, they're, you know, thinking they want a marriage, but then when push comes to shove, they're not wanting to get to that point or not wanting that commitment. And I don't know if that was like the same thing you were going through.
It wasn't necessarily commitment related. It was more of like significant relationship issues that would come up really early on.
Okay.
And like, for example, one of them, I've talked about this in my podcast, was related to, it was a big lifestyle thing. This person had kids and I had to decide how I felt about that, if I wanted to jump in and be a stepmom. And that was really difficult for me because I knew that I did want kids. So I was kind of thinking like, oh, maybe this is what my family looks like. Maybe I am ready for this. But the more I thought about it, and it just kind of didn't sit right because I knew I wasn't 100% ready at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's more of things like that, you know?
Yeah. And then what made you get to the point where you were ready?
I think that it's a lot different when you think about raising someone else's kids versus having your own. And I'm very pro whatever type of family you want to have. And I know that all families look different. But when it comes to the day-to-day responsibilities, I think you really have to want to be a step parent, or you're doing that family a huge disservice. So it's not just me thinking about, do I want to be with this man? Like, is this person the person I wanted to be with? Because he was lovely and amazing and so kind to me. And I was like, oh, I really want to be with this person. But it was the family that I was not sure about. Like, it's a whole package. It's like if you're you and your dog, you know, it's like you have to be with someone that loves your dog. And the kids are great too. This is not anything about the kids, but it was more of like, you know, there's certain dynamics or in certain responsibilities. Like, am I prepared to take them to school? You know, am I ready to help out in the ways that they need help and help raise them when they already have years and years and years of like certain ideologies like baked into who they are. Like, I don't want to be in conflict with that. Like, how do I fit into this family? Those were the biggest questions for me. But for me, like, knowing that I wanted a family was always like, I always knew I wanted to be a mom. I just, you know, it just happened for me really quickly in my case.
I love it. Now, what was this blind date like? How did you get set up on it?
So I had a really amazing friend who, I don't know how she thought that this would work out, but basically we were talking about if we wanted kids, and I was telling her I needed to cycle through people a little bit quicker, and she asked, are you willing to be set up? And I was like, yeah, sure, because I was planning on getting on dating apps anyway. But it was maybe like a week before I was on the apps. So I was kind of like preparing mentally, like, I'm going to make an effort to start dating. And so I said yes, and she was like, okay, I've had this person in mind, and she checked with him, and he was like, yeah, I'm not seeing anyone, and we go on a blind date, and next thing you know, it was just like, it just worked, which is so weird, because it's like, how often do things just work?
Yeah. No, yes.
Yeah. So
I
that's
love
kind
that.
of been, that was the beginning of my recent chapter of life, I guess.
Okay. And then what were the things that like worked for you? What was different with him?
You know, that is a great question. I think that, oh, my light just went off. I think there were a couple of things that really worked in our favor. And one of them was the fact that we were both ready for the same thing at the same time. We didn't play any games with each other. We both weren't dating multiple people. It was just kind of like, oh, we just want to date each other. And I'd asked him about that because he'd gotten out of a relationship that was a very long-term relationship. And I was fully prepared to kind of like do that dance that you do with someone at the beginning where it's like, okay, are we dating other people? Like, that's totally fine. You know, you kind of give people grace at the beginning because it's normal to take things slow. And I was totally fine with that. But every conversation I had with him, he was so transparent, and he was just put all his cards on the table and was like, actually, no, I don't really want to date other people. I just want to date you. So because we were so open and honest and had good communication about that stuff from the beginning and happened to be on the same page, it just cleared the way for all of the bullshit to go away. And it made everything so much easier to progress quickly. And it's not like we were intending on progressing quickly. It's amazing how quickly it can progress when two people are just honest and they want the same things.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I love that. And like, I love that you have a friend that set you up with, because if you go on the apps, you don't really you get a slew of people that are not ready for that and just trying to date. And then you get a slew of people that are a bit avoidant, a bit anxious, and less of them are secure on the app. So I love the friend setup. That was perfect. Were you on the apps before that for meeting people?
I had in the past definitely been on the apps, gone through some cycles in my single times where I had experienced, many different things on the apps. I've had amazing experiences with people who actually ended up becoming friends. They weren't romantic connections, but we stayed in touch. They're still in my life today. Then I had a couple of relationships from apps, and then I've had a lot of train wrecks. What's your best app story? I bet you have a good one.
I'm just thinking of the last time I went on a date, like before Collier, before that relationship. I actually met a lot of those guys in person, because I don't know why, but the universe was just like throwing me men. They're like, oh, here's this guy, and I would just like meet people so easily. I would go out, I would just like be like, hi, and like still to this day, like it's so easy for me to meet people in person, but I just have to like be in a room where maybe there's not full amount of gay guys, and you know what I mean. It's like in a lot of places I go, I'm like, it's either like majority are women or gay guys, and I need to go to places where there's an even mix.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the apps, stories, I feel like I have better stories of meeting guys in person and then them, because I'm very easy, like, I used to be very easy. I would just be like, yeah, okay. Okay, your tongue's down my throat. Now your hand's down my pants. Okay. And I would give in that way and meet a lot of guys at country concerts, Mm-hmm. Have you gone to Stagecoach at all?
I haven't, but that does seem like a good place to meet a bunch of guys.
Well, here's the thing. I love a mix of conservative and Democrat. I like the middle. I like the middle ground more so. Mm-hmm. But you get so conservative guys over there that sometimes they say stuff about like gay guys and not down with you having a friend that's gay, and you're
really?
Yes, like
in
that's
California,
and then I lived in Texas for a bit too.
Okay.
So and then I was like, you can pull over the Uber right here. Yeah. I'm not going to the coffee shop with you or to the next location with you.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, I don't recommend people going to the next location, meaning like their house. Like, you should definitely date a few times and don't do those one-night stands.
Okay, so Terra, I don't know if this is a date. This is someone that I knew through friends, but we ended up grabbing drinks together. And one of those weird situations where you don't know if it's a date or not?
Yes.
So I end up on one of those with someone that I knew through acting, and he told me he had a Confederate flag in his bedroom. And I remember being really kind of like confused about this, because this was a long time ago. This is before the Confederate flag got canceled.
Okay.
And I was like really pressing him on it to try to understand why. Like, why does that mean so much to you? Like, what that's associated, right, with. Like, it's a lot of negative stuff. But he made it all about the heritage and was just kind of like, I don't associate it with slavery, blah, blah, blah. So that date ended. And then when all that stuff happened a couple years later, where the whole conversation happened about the Confederate flag, and it really did go through, you know, a very public moment where everyone was like, yeah, we're not down with this anymore. I actually texted him. I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, do you feel any differently about the flag? And he said no. Like, he didn't get it.
Oh no.
It's weird. I had a friend of mine who gifted me a bunch of clothes at a clothing exchange once, and in her clothing exchange box, she had like a Terra shirt that also had a Confederate flag. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh. And am I stupid for not even knowing what Terra is?
Oh no, it's just a band. It's just
okay.
A band. I thought it was kind of like, at the time when I saw it, it did have a connotation, but it was kind of interesting that like it was on a band t-shirt, you know, and then all of a sudden I myself am donating it. I'm giving it to someone, you know, the goodwill. I'm like, so maybe someone will enjoy this.
Yeah, or maybe just burning it might be a better option too.
Burning it too.
Yeah.
Just getting rid of it somehow.
Yeah, so true. Well, yeah, so you have a lot of crazy dating stories, I'm assuming.
I've definitely had a few.
Yes. Can you share any of them with me now that we're on that topic?
Yeah. Let's see. Where should I begin? I've had so many weird. Okay. I can give like a policy that I had, and you can tell me if this is out of line or not.
Okay.
But when I was on the apps, I used to do this thing where I would I would block someone if they tried to cancel on me. Like, period.
Okay.
With no exceptions, really, unless it was like a death in the family or something. So this happened to me quite a few times, and it would be like, we would make a plan to go, I don't know, get pizza or something like that. Like this one specific thing I'm thinking about. And I would sometimes, when you're on the apps, I felt like I would just kind of say yes to anyone, even if I wasn't that interested, because that's the problem with the app is if you're not meeting with someone in person, you don't really know if you have chemistry or not.
Yeah.
You don't want to write people off because maybe they're not your type. So I would frequently say yes to people that just kind of weren't my type.
Okay.
So this is one of those people. And I would just, I was basically on my way to this date, but it was kind of out of the way and I had to go to work after. So this was kind of an ordeal. Like, it was going to be like a very long day for me. And when I was on the way, this person said, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel, and didn't really give any explanation or feedback. And I just blocked them.
Okay.
And I was
fine.
just like, that's okay. Like, I wasn't that interested in the first place, but either way, I think that that's something that I carried into my in-person dating
okay.
life. Yeah, last minute cancellations, even a cancellation I think a day before, unless it's a medical reason, I was just kind of like, I don't really want to give another opportunity to this.
Like that.
Do you have any policies like that?
Well, I'm honestly scared to death to like go on the apps and like honestly date kind of again.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll get there. And I mean, I don't know. It's just weird right now. It's only been like 3 months. So I'm just focusing on my work and focusing on that. But I'm not opposed. If I meet someone out and about, that's a different story. You know, I'm not going to be like, no, I have a boyfriend. You know, I'm not going to do that because I don't. So I'm going to be like, maybe if you're not creepy and weird, and also, what are you into? Let me check you out on social media first. I don't know. I might do a background check on you. I think that might be extreme, but that's the place where I'm at right now.
I like the background check idea.
Yeah, but I think my standards would just be if they don't like dogs, you're all the way out, you know? Or if you're judging already, like saying weird things, that's a red flag. Saying something along the lines of, you know, sexual right off the bat. Like, no, we're not going to go there, dude. Like, this ain't a hookup.
Yeah.
You know? And also, if you have a shirtless photo, just already no, hard no, you know? We're not into those.
Okay, do you think that men feel pressured to maybe have a shirtless photo or to show what they look like? Because I feel like women, and I was probably getting awful dating advice at the time, but I feel like when in the earlier times when I was on apps, people would always say, oh, you should absolutely put a bikini picture in there. Like, let people know that you're hot or whatever.
No.
Right? It's bad advice, right?
Bad advice.
Yeah.
And I'll say this only, like, I love bikini photos, you know, but you have to do maybe one of you in like a sarong or something. You're in like Florida on vacation, maybe not Florida, maybe Hawaii on vacation, and it's a family photo where it's just like you with like a drink because you like pina coladas on vacation. I like that kind of photo, but if you're just like doing it like, oh, hey, there's this me and my bikini, like, and you're trying to find a husband, like, don't post that photo. But if you're like, hey, I fuck around, or hey, I have a bikini company and maybe I want like a surfer guy or someone who's also down to hang out in swimsuits with me, then definitely post those photos. But you have to, like, if you're and I only say no to the photo only because they're thinking about that hot tub first date. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where,
for sure.
What do you think is going to happen on that hot tub first date?
Okay, so I remembered a good story that I have right now.
Okay.
It's a Raya story, and it's totally a hot tub story.
Oh my gosh.
And it's with a celebrity that I'm not going to say who they are, but like you would know who they are.
Are they dead now?
Or what?
Are they dead now?
They're not dead.
Okay,
no.
good.
I mean, they're dead to me, but they're not dead.
Then it's not the person I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait. You knew already? You had an idea of who this was?
Well, I was like, maybe, well, my friend met, and I can't say his name either because it's just, I'll tell you afterwards though, or maybe for the Patreon, you know? So she went on a date with him and he's pretty well known, and like he died recently, so
I know who you're talking about, and I went on a date with that person too, but this is
Shut
someone
up!
different. This is someone different.
Okay, tell me your story then.
Okay, so this is probably the worst first date I've ever been on. I felt so disrespected, but let's say it was Raya, and I'm pretty sure, let's say I had a bikini photo somewhere in my profile picture. So maybe he thought I was, wanted to get in this hot tub, but
yes,
he invited me over to his house and I didn't know he was going to be in the hot tub. So I get there and I park outside and he texts me, hey, when you get there, just let yourself in. So I'm thinking, okay, that's kind of rude, but okay, whatever, right? So I go inside and he's not in the house. He's in the backyard in the hot tub sipping a whiskey. He doesn't get out of the hot tub. He doesn't introduce himself to me. This is our first time meeting. I don't know this person,
Yeah.
Didn't offer me a water or a drink or anything. He just stayed in the hot tub and I was like, this is so weird. So I think I sat there with my feet in the hot tub and we just kind of talked for a little bit. Eventually he gets out and we have, kind of a really weird conversation.
Okay.
It was so... Have you ever been on a date with someone who's intentionally argumentative?
Yes.
I hate that quality.
Yes.
I think it's the most unattractive personality trait because we're just getting to know each other. It would be more constructive to find common ground, to see if we like each other. I don't understand why everything I'm saying, it has to be challenged at this point in time. It's not that deep. But we end up having these weird conversations where I feel like very challenged the whole time and very adversarial. It was not creating a positive vibe. And eventually I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to dive bomb this whole date. So I was just like, you know what, I don't believe in the moon landing. And so he's like, really? Well, tell me why. And I was like, I saw this documentary, like whatever people say. Yeah. And so we have this whole conversation about the moon landing, and it was really awkward. And then I'm pretty sure our date ended with him telling me that I should try to find God. And I left. And we never hung out again.
Oh my gosh. Well, at least it wasn't a Scientologist, and at least he didn't have the NDA on the table already for you to sign.
Oh my gosh, right? But yeah, it was a really, really strange first date. I felt like it was a very negative impression that he made. And yeah, being in the hot tub, like the first time you meet someone without even asking them, hey, do you want to come in the hot tub? Like, do you like hot tub? Like nothing. He was just in there. I should have probably just walked out after like 30 minutes and just been like, nice to meet you. Bye.
Right. But you were like, at least he wasn't late.
At least he wasn't late.
At least he planned the date.
Planned the date saying, just come over.
Yeah. And he didn't flake.
It's so interesting, though, to think of, like, the ways that I settled in the past in dating situations. Like, any time I have been proud of myself for creating, like, a policy or a rule, or if you cancel on me, I'm just not going to give you a second chance. Like, those types of things have been big wins for me along the way. And it's interesting because I don't necessarily consider myself someone who has low self-esteem, but I think that with dating specifically, and I think with being in entertainment, we get so used to rejection that it makes us so flexible on our boundaries all of a sudden. And I realized that is the way I had been dating through a lot of my 20s and early 30s. I feel like I was not necessarily great at advocating for myself or for speaking out about what I wanted or what I expected. And I think the tide is turning because more women are starting to talk about these things. And I think it's ultimately much better for us. It's better for our safety. It's better for our mental health. It's better for our ultimate relationships, because whether or not you end up with someone that maybe puts you in a bad or creepy situation, you know that you can leave. Like, you have options. Like, this is not the best that you're going to get is hot tub guy or whatever, or person who cancels on you an hour before. But it took me a very long time to get to that point.
Yeah. No, I think the boundaries are what is really important to have. And, some people may be like, oh, like, have a little leniency, but I think you not having that leniency with, them canceling, it kind of made you be like, okay, I'm not accepting any kind of bull coming my way.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. And I also just think canceling in general is kind of, and it's weird because I would do this all the time with people. Yeah. I would cancel plans left and right, whether they were with friends or dates. Like, I was a big canceler. If something came up or if I was stressed about something, I would just cancel immediately. But also reflecting back, I don't think that was good for me either, because it says something about your integrity and about how much this is a priority to you, which you were kind of mentioning earlier, Terra. Like, how does this person actually want a relationship? Are they actually putting that effort in to meet people? Because if that is a priority, they're not going to cancel on someone they're interested in. Yeah, they're going to go down the road, down the experience. Like, just go spend an hour with that person. And if you can't sit down face to face across from someone and have a conversation for an hour, even if your day was a little inconvenient, even if you were a little, something happened, or if, I don't know, whatever the circumstances are, if you're not willing to make that a priority, then think of all the other things that they're not going to make a priority. It's going to catch up to the relationship.
No, that is so true. That's like a theme that I've had in my relationships. Like, yes, they're so on it in the beginning, and then they start like, okay, well, I'm working, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. I'm like, well, you want me just to go to you all the time? Like, how's that going to work? So I want someone to show up and be consistent. And that's like a good sign to just show that in the beginning.
Absolutely. What do you feel about this 50-50 movement? Are you a 50-50 girl?
For like splitting the check? No. No. No, I get turned off. I'm like, okay, is closed. Like, no one's entering this ever. If you don't pay on the first date, like, that's an automatic, like, write-off. Like, and I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, but it's a turn on having a guy, like, pay for the meal and, like, take that, be like, okay, I got this. I'm like, ooh, okay, you got this.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I've done both. I've like, split a bill, and I've obviously been the recipient of someone covering a first date. But I love it. I love it when someone does, because it makes me feel taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And respected. Like, thank you for spending time with me.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and okay, so I don't know if do you tell guys this like straight up when you're dating, like, hey, I really value like a traditional with, meals and stuff, traditional role with that?
I've never had to explain that to someone up front, but I've had a couple of times, maybe twice, where a man brought up the fact that they felt that I wasn't like contributing or splitting things with them. In both cases, it was definitely a turn off, and I was like, okay, I don't want to really date this person anymore. But it was weird because in both situations, it made me realize that, again, I was kind of settling, and not because of the 50-50 thing, but it was the person.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't really that invested in this person. The first time it happened was a first date, and the way that this person said this was I thought it was so rude that I was like, I'm never going to spend time with them again. It really gave me the ick. But yeah, this guy asked for my time. I wasn't really interested in them, but I was single at the time. So I was like, okay, well, let's keep an open mind and go out on this sushi date.
Yeah.
And then the bill comes. He asked to split it, and he said something like, well, if I could treat, every pretty girl, like, I can't afford to treat every girl. Which I was like, every girl, you're here with me, and you asked me to hang out, like, what? So we split the check, and I never saw him again. And the second time it happened was someone I was on a couple of dates with, and I was not under the assumption that they were maybe financially pressed. I thought they were really successful. They're a film director. They've done a bunch of stuff. And then one time we're at dinner, and they were like, you never like pay for anything. And I was just like, I really did not think that I had to here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, you know what? This one's on me. I'll buy her dinner. And so I did. Yeah. But it made me realize in both situations, like I said, I was not, why was I hanging out with these people that I wasn't 100% all in on?
100%. Yeah, no, I think that's the thing. Now, do you miss dating at all?
Oh my God. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, but I did have 2 really great experiences before I went on my first date with the guy I ended up with. And they actually, I feel like, set the tone and the mood for me to have a very positive experience walking into this blind date with my future husband. And I talk about this a little bit on my first episode of Hello Darling, where I really go into, what going on these first 2 dates after getting out of a relationship, it was like people that I knew socially, and I was kind of just having an open mind and open heart. And even though I had some anxiety about being back on the dating market, both of these people were so great, and I loved having conversations with them, and I felt like I was connecting with them, and I felt like I actually really liked hearing about everything that they were talking about, whether it was their experiences, their families, what they wanted to do in life. And I was just like, you know what? Dating can be fun. And I realized that I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking like, oh, I don't want to pick my dating app pictures. Like, this is going to be exhausting. I really don't want to like go on all these disappointing dates. I remember I was having all these negative emotions about it, and it took just kind of these two casual hangouts of people to make me realize, like, oh, I could have fun.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I wasn't thinking that, but I think a lot of people think that. Like, we get into our heads with all of our bad experiences, and we don't allow ourselves to really believe that you could have, like, this next first date you go on could be super fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe you'll convince me to get there then.
Yeah.
I just, right now I'm moving. Mm-hmm. There's a lot. I'm like, I don't even know where to say I live in Orange County or Marina Del Rey if they ask, and it's like, okay, scheduling. So that's a lot for right now, but that's right now,
Yeah.
But I want your life. I want your life. I want your story.
Oh my God. You can absolutely have my story. I'm a big believer that this could happen to anyone,
Yes.
It really just takes the timing to be correct and the right person to come into your life. And I think that energy of both people wanting the same thing, it's really beautiful when it does happen. I'm a huge advocate of falling in love quickly and having a whirlwind romance, like as long as it's rooted in some sort of reality, like I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, and as long as their name is like not John Meehan,
Yes.
Those ones don't happen so great.
As long as they're not that.
Yeah, as long as they're not a psychopath, I love it. Now, where did you guys elope to?
So we actually didn't have a destination eloping. We eloped to Ventura County Courthouse.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, we were planning a wedding. We were going to have a wedding in March, which is, last month. It's crazy to think that. But once I got pregnant, we realized we didn't want the stress of the wedding, basically.
Yeah.
They are incredibly stressful. I think even if you have help and support, it can be a lot to try to coordinate everything, and not just the coordination of the event. To us, it was also, it's a very emotional process because we're such a new relationship.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that I didn't know in his life and that he did not know in mine. So we're trying to think of, who's going to be invited. How do we make everyone happy? But at the same time, it's like, are we going to meet all of these people at the wedding? It didn't necessarily seem like that was the best way to do it, but we didn't want to exclude people also. But then also, he's from the East Coast. I'm from California. How are we really going to ask all these people to travel? We wanted to do a very casual wedding. And then we kept having this guilt about asking people to travel for such a casual event, and kept feeling the pressure to make it bigger and bigger and more of a thing than we had initially wanted to do. So we realized that we probably weren't going to make everybody happy. And even in the very beginning, when we were telling people like our family members for save the dates, like not even like our official save the dates, there was already like certain pushback or opinions or people who were saying, oh, kids aren't allowed. That's messed up. We have kids, how are we going to do this? And like, just stuff like that. It became so overwhelming. And we kept asking each other, who are we doing this for?
Yeah.
Are we doing this for us? Like, who are we trying to make happy here? So in a weird way, it was almost a relief that we were able to cancel what we were planning, and cancel with enough notice, like, because we're a couple, like like 4 or 5 months out from planning it. So we're able to cancel with enough notice for it not to be a problem, to not lose any money. And then we're able to shift our plan really quickly to doing a very small courthouse wedding and kind of a little reception afterwards that was really nice at this really nice restaurant. And we're able to have that moment and share that with friends and family, like a very, very small group, like 10 people. But I am a big advocate for eloping because of all the reasons I just mentioned. Like, you don't have to be pregnant to experience the stress of a wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot. And I think that the wedding industry, the wedding dress industry, the event aspect of it, even everything down to the rings, there's so many financial decisions that have to be made that I think are kind of ridiculous for a one-day event. And
I agree.
that's right. That's just how I feel. And I think that there are ways around it, but you kind of have to go a little bit non-traditional to do that because the whole industry is telling like geared toward spend money, make it a big deal once in a lifetime. You know, they like want to tell you once in a lifetime, this is a dream. And I feel like it was never really my dream.
Yeah.
Were you a kid that wanted to like, that you envisioned your wedding? Like, was that your thing?
Like, at one point, I started planning it with my first boyfriend.
Uh-huh.
Well, not my first boyfriend. The first one I lived with, you know. And I was thinking about everything we would do. Like, I have, like, a Pinterest board for everything. And now I'm like, no, I just want to elope somewhere tropical. Whoever wants to come can come, but I'm not paying for them. Mm-hmm. And I want... Like, my mom gives everyone a certain amount of money for, like, their wedding and stuff. I'm like, what if I never get married? You know? Like, that money is just, like, for anyone that is, like, beholden.
You will. First of all, you will.
Thanks.
Yeah, but, yeah, I like your whole idea of just doing a tropical eloping. Where would you want to go?
I would want to go to maybe Costa Rica. That would be fun. Or somewhere else that's on. Thailand's also just so amazing. So I love Thailand, you know, and it's cheap over there. So why not?
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm a big fan of that idea.
Yeah. And then maybe like go to like Paris and Europe on the honeymoon and visit all those places and go to like the romantic parts. I don't know. Seems like a good time.
I love that. I wish I was able to have a proper honeymoon. That's my one regret. I would rather have a cool honeymoon than like a banging wedding.
Well, maybe like you still have that. There's no time limit to it, right?
That's true. Yeah, there's no time limit. We kind of ended up doing, because we got married on Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay.
We ended up having a mini moon, but it was also kind of my birthday trip because my birthday's in December. So we went to Hawaii for a couple of days, but it wasn't like, we didn't do like a big honeymoon. And I think that would have been actually really cool. But yeah, you're right. Maybe we'll do a delayed honeymoon. And that's the other thing I learned actually through going through this process was that, you know, even if you do choose to do something small, even if you do choose to elope or do something that's not necessarily a traditional wedding, you can always redo it later. If you miss that opportunity or you're like, oh, I didn't get to wear the dress I wanted to wear, I really wish I could have read my vows in front of like all my friends and family, you can do it again. Like you can actually plan one a year or two down the line. So, and you could take a honeymoon 2 years down the line. It just, there are no rules. You don't have to do it in a specific order.
Yeah, 100%. So do you say that your new podcast is really about that journey and everything that we just talked about in a sense other than the dating aspect?
100%. I mean, I do go into a lot of detail about our dating and how I feel like it was different and why it was different, why it worked out. But yeah, then I move into this whole story of navigating our wedding, all the ways that I wanted to have a different type of wedding and why, and what made it easier for us. And then I'm kind of moving a little bit more into what it was like when I found out I was pregnant and how everything changed. And I'll probably end up talking a little bit more about that, a little bit about sobriety, because I stopped drinking a couple weeks before I found out I was pregnant. But also being pregnant for 9 months, it's like I really had to commit to that sobriety. Yeah. And it's changed my life too.
Oh, wow. I love that so much. Well, I think that there's so much more that we could get into, but I'm going to save a little bit of that for the Patreon if you don't mind.
Okay.
So where can we find your podcast, everything, where we can go listen more of your story and also join the Patreon, guys?
Absolutely. You guys can find me at Darling with 4 H's, DAHHHHLING on Instagram. My podcast is Hello Darling, which is spelled the same way. It's on Spotify and iTunes and also YouTube. So you can find me there for pretty much everything.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Let's get into the Patreon section. Thank you for listening to today's episode with Erin Darling. I am so excited to have the conversation and can't wait to catch up with coffee later on. So, thank you guys all. Please, if you like this episode, send in 5 stars, a good review, subscribe. It really helps in growing the podcast. And if you want more content, check it out on Patreon. There's a lot of stuff and it really helps in supporting the podcast. There is a lot of expenses that go into it. So I really appreciate all your support out there. And until next time, I'm Terra Newell.